in the last sort of 12 to 18 months, we've really found our niche with buyers agents. We had a lot of people, a lot of buyers agents using the platform, but we didn't really. We just kept uncovering nuggets of things that they wanted, and we just kept, okay, let's see if we can really solve this problem. My background was Price Finder, so for the last 20 years building that product. I left there probably 2 or 3 years ago. Obviously, that was a real estate product. And Stash, we kind of found this niche, or no one was really looking at the buyer side of the journey. Obviously, seeing a lot more buyers agents enter the market. And there's a lot of data out there that the buyer's really interested in that is all on 50 different websites. So you kind of got to go everywhere to go and get it. And it's quite difficult to get unless you know where to go, because every property is kind of different. So that was kind of the premise behind it all. So we sort of, let's see if we can bring it all together and how do we help solve the problems that BAs have. So I'll do a really quick run through, because I know some of you have already seen a lot of what Stash can do. But tonight we're going to go through sort of some of the new stuff we've done, particularly around off-market properties. So there's a new part of Stash. Let me just find my right screen. All right. So yeah, particularly around off-market properties. So there's a lot of, sourcing with agents or going to real estate agents and trying to source off-market properties. There's stock on the market. Obviously, there's a couple of 100,000 properties on the market. A few years ago, that was probably 10 years ago, it was probably double, and so there's not a lot of listings out there. Starting to change a little bit. But just off-market was such a big thing that buyers agents were, helping get buyers to feed them properties. So I'll go through that in a second, but just to give you a quick rundown of Stash, let me just see if I can bring you guys back up so I can see you. So yeah, for those not familiar with Stash, there is a couple of other demos that we have throughout the week. I think there's Tuesday demos, Thursday demos, just to give you a quick rundown of what the whole product does. But just to really, in a nutshell, it's kind of like all the data that's out there, whether it's a property level, suburb level, we're trying to bring all that data on platform. So if you're looking at any given suburb, and you want to find out anything about that suburb from an investment point of view or a liquidity point of view, you can basically bring that up. So we've got a lot of things like heat maps. I won't go through all of it because there is another demo for that, but there's like flooding, bushfire, biodiversity, so risks around properties, making what things to avoid. So things that the buyer really, really needs to know, and you as a buyer's agent definitely needs to know. A lot of different heat maps. So what's the social profiles of all of these suburbs? What's the median of all the suburbs? What's the growth look like? Is it good schools? Are they bad schools? I can drill down to things like social housing and see where the little pockets of social housing are. So no matter what you're looking at, whether any property or any suburb, just being able to bring this data up at any point in time and just see, is this the right property for my buyer? So that's sort of a really quick, in terms of the spatial side. The other side is basically you could type in any property address, and bring up, here's everything we know about a given property. So this is just any property that comes across your desk, whether it's from an agent or one you're looking for, on market, off market, whatever. You can come in here and see all of this data on every single property. And this is sort of part of the vetting process that we do every day. But it's certainly with the off market properties that are coming through, we're doing all these checks just to make sure that there's no surprises, basically. So we're looking at things like what's the social housing, what's the road type around it, what's the proximity to certain things like trains, buses, schools. We've got all the previous sales history in there. We plug in other data providers. So if you don't have, particularly with Stash, the only bit we really don't have that all the other competitors, like a CoreLogic or Price Finder, is literally that line to say which is this, who owns which property. We've got all the sales history. We've got all the planning insights. So will it flood, any bushfire, any biodiversity, any heritage impact, any nearby developments that are going on. So all of this data that you'd have to go to a whole bunch of different websites, we bring onto platform. You can look at stats on any given suburb, comparable sales on any given suburb or any given property, and then print that out into basically a supercharged CMA for the buyer, aimed particularly at the buyer and everything that they want to know about that property. So that's kind of a really Stash in a nutshell. You type in any property, any suburb, search on map, and bring up literally everything you could possibly know about that property. In terms of off-market, which is what we're here today, is over the last sort of, I'd say six months or so, we had a lot of users using our platform that were either just entering the market, becoming a buyer's agent, hadn't yet found their first client, but they were working with agents and finding properties. And some of them were working on behalf of other buyer's agents, ended up just becoming a property sourcer whilst they found their feet and found their first buyer. So they had all the networks, they found properties, they were working closely with, say, one buyer's agent or two buyer's agents, and just finding them deals, finding them off-market deals that they had a ready list of buyers for that they then put them into. So that's kind of how it all started. We've still got a lot of property sources on the platform, finding the properties. And then what they were doing, if they couldn't find a buyer for them, or sorry, buyer's agent for them, they kind of went through to the keeper. They kind of just, okay, they ended up either selling the property on market, in a month's time or whatever. So what we found here is how do we help put all the property sources together with the buyer's agents? So over the last sort of couple of months, we've been finding new property sources using our platform. They're coming out every single day going, can I join? Can I add my own properties to this? Even buyer's agents that are fully up and running. They've got properties that they don't particularly have a buyer for that they got from an agent yesterday type thing. So rather than let that one pass, they could stick it on here and then feed it to the other buyer's agents on platform. So I think at the moment we've got about 50 or so properties on here. Some of them have been selling, so some of them have already sold. So that will flag them as such. We check them every day if they come on the market and sort of flag them as well. So we obviously just want off-market properties in this side. So that'll be there. So I think we've got about 30 or 40. I think we're adding, 10s and 20s sort of every week. We've got about 200 or 300, 400 or so to load in the background. But we want to get to a point where anyone can load anything. We're still going to vet them. There's fees involved in terms of sourcing. I don't know if anyone chucks it in the comments or anything like that. If anyone does have any questions throughout while we're talking, just chuck it in the comments and Brett will monitor that and raise it up. But yeah, if there's anyone using sources in the past before to find properties, I didn't really realize it was a thing, but it's quite common out there, particularly with VAs that have been around for a while. So rather than spend their time chasing new or finding properties for their buyers, they're spending a lot more time focused on finding new buyers. So it's kind of like if I spend all my time this month focused on, say, finding a new buyer, in the next couple of weeks, then go and find that person a property. Then come a couple of months time, I've got no buyers left. So it's just this: how do we help you position, focus on what you're good at? Let's go and find buyers, find lots of buyers, and then how do we help you find the other side of that, which is properties to put them into? So whether it's a PPOR, obviously it's probably at the moment it's working a lot more for the investor side. So it's all about the numbers around where to find properties and do the numbers stack up, bringing that to the surface. So we're seeing a lot of that. But over the next few weeks, we'll probably load about 300 or 400 properties off market. We're cherry picking the good ones. We're not bringing just because it's off market doesn't make it a good buy. And I think there's a misconception there around that. So we're doing a lot of vetting on those properties to make sure that they are good, in good areas, that they would have a buyer for them based on the stats. We're doing all the checks around the bushfire, the floods, making sure, so bringing all that to the surface. We're just loading in the insurance side as well. So rather than you have to go off and do insurance quotes just to see, is this property going to cost you an arm and a leg from an insurance perspective, we're trying to bring them into the fold as well. So we're just trying to automate as much of the things that you would have done finding properties, trying to bring it on platform, help connect you with the property sourcer, connect you to the real estate agent, and move on to the next property. So that's kind of the premise of the whole thing. In terms of how it looks, so basically if you're on Stash, even on the trial, you can come in here, you'll see a thing, you just unlock it, and you'll start to see some properties. I think last week we had, anyone who's seen this before or has seen Stash Marketplace before, it's just a scroll through and you can see a whole bunch of properties. What I've just done, because we're about to load a whole bunch more properties in there, I've started to bring in new search functionality to make that much easier. So we've got all the new ones coming in here, but up here, if you wanted to search any given region or any given council, you can do that. Or if I go, you know what, I don't know exactly, but my buyer doesn't really care where, but they're interested in the numbers. So they want a 5% yielding property, they can just do that and search. Or if there's specific keywords on those listings, they can start to type those things in as well. So if I were to go, I think there's about 50 or so, some of them on here, but if I just go, let's look at, I don't care where, it's purely about the numbers. I'm just going to go 5% yield or more and search. I'm going to get a whole bunch of properties that are off market. Some of these have just been loaded up. So we've got 6.7%, 7.6%, 7.7%, 8%, and then some of the stats around that. So we disclose the address so you can then look further into these properties as well. So it's not just a case of it's all secret. You still do your own due diligence on some of this just to double check, but we'll do most of it for you. But it's just if you want to do that on top. So if I have a look through some of these and go, yep, if I want to look further into some of these, so this one's 420, rental amount of 430. Yields 5.6. I don't have insurance on this one yet. It's not currently tenanted. No other red flags on that. But if I wanted to dig further into that property, I can click on it and see more about that property just to make sure this is a good one for my buyer. I can see what is the estimate that we think it is. If I want to see what that estimate is on all the other portals, I can go and do that as well. So if I want to see what Domain says, on the house says, View, REA, I can click on those to see what the estimate is over there. Stats are really important. So if I want to see what's the suburb median like in this suburb, what's the rental stats like in this suburb, does it stack up? How has this suburb performed over the last decade? So you can go through all of that as part of Stash. And then if that property is right for your buy, then you can click on Connect to Deal Sourcer and get connected to the real estate agent to move that property. So that's kind of the quick in a nutshell. Sorry, mate. If anyone has got a question, just chuck it in chat or just shout it out. You've got your comparable sales there as well. So as I went through before, you can see all your comps. So just based on what that buy it now price is from the sourcer, does it make sense? Does it look like it is a good buy based on the comparable sales that are there? So you can bring that up. If I just go back and let's have a look, let's bring that 5% one up and go, you know what, that does look pretty good. I could then go and connect with the sourcer on that one. Here's all the stats. There's some more data on that in terms of what the sourcer has added. They generally try, like what we found with some of the sources, their sourcing fee does vary to property. So that's just a given based on where they work, but that's fine. But the pricing that they're trying to get from the real estate agent is really the buy it now price. This price kind of gets it done. That's what we're trying to make sure we get as part of this platform. We don't want you to waste your time on your buyer and look, not the best basically. Yeah, they said I'll get they said this property is going to be 420, but actually they want 450. We don't want that. We really want to know, you know what, this property gets it done at 420 and it gets it done the next couple of days. So we're seeing a lot of stock. I don't know if you've ever seen other off-market platforms. We've seen them all come and go, to be honest. And you see a lot of off-market quickly becomes on-market, and they end up just being like another portal with just half as much listings, basically. So these, we want to make sure that they are 100% off market. Every day we're checking. So this one has just come on the market as well. So I've flagged that. I haven't removed it yet, but I probably will once I've got load more in there. But every day we're checking going, is any one of these properties just come to market? We'll flag them so you'll know. And then you can just go to the listing and hit them direct, to be honest. So yeah, so that's kind of the Stash in a nutshell. In terms of then inquiring, connect with Deal Sourcer. Put in your message to say, yep, I've got a buyer ready to go, buyer ready to purchase, you agree to the terms, agree to any sourcing fees, and you've got a buyer ready to go that will connect. What happens straight after that is an email will get sent to the sourcer, an email will get sent to you, basically connecting all the parties together. The sourcing fees and everything like that, it's only upon unconditional. So if there's no deal to be done or there's no deal done, then there's no sourcing fee. So that's pretty standard amongst other sources that we're out there. We're sort of been guided by pretty much what the industry and what the market has been doing. They've just been doing it on emails and chat messages and WhatsApp group to this point. So that's kind of really quickly. I haven't, in terms of if you've got stock, say that you want to, you're working with your buyer, your agents, and you've got a property that's come through your desk that you don't have currently a buyer for. We're going to make it easier so you can become a sourcer as well. Any Stash member can become a sourcer. We'll still do some of the property vetting and things like that after the fact. At the moment, I haven't automated that process, but if you do want to become a sourcer, if you do have stock, you can just reach out and we can add you to that. And basically all it is, I probably can't show you on this login because I've turned it off, but basically there's a separate section inside Stash where you can go through and list the property as part of the platform. I probably could show you. Any questions on that side first, I guess? Take that.
Hey, Colin. Sorry, just a quick one. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this, just to make sure I got this right. So this is only the off-market properties, yeah? Not the ones which are already on realestate.com, yeah?
Correct.
Okay. And the sources, so let's say, for example, if I've got a property, let's say if I'm acting as a seller agent, and I've got a property, so I have to send it to you guys, or can I upload it myself?
You will be able to upload it yourself. At the moment, I've just got to approve every sourcer that comes through, but we're finding that there's lots and lots of people out there, so we're going to automate, I guess, that approval process, just to make it a lot more easier, because it surprised me, to be honest. I didn't realize how much. So the property sources out there, they're just starting out to become a BA, and that's what they're doing full time, is just sourcing properties, getting 3-4 a week type thing that they're moving on and making a good business out of that. And then what we found the other side is, then there's a lot of BAs out there that just have stock from their real estate connections that they don't currently have a buyer for, but maybe someone else does. How do we help flip that on, and you can still clip the ticket? So yeah, there is a section I'll show you at the end around that, because that's the first part is 100% off market. So if you want to search on market, you can search on market deals and see all the data. There's a different demo for that, because it works in a similar way. If you want to search every property on the market out of a couple of 100,000, you could just drill down and go, show me the properties on the market that have 5% yield and say price 20% below the median. So if you want to try and find a really cheap property in a suburb that is potentially good yielding, or a renovator or something like that, so you can search that way through that. That's kind of a different. Just to really quickly show you, is like you can search anywhere in the country, price below the median, and I'm looking for yield, rather than going suburb by suburb by suburb, or like on REA and Domain, you're really just searching for the price points and the bed counts and things like that, more so than I'm trying to find something that's going to yield me X and Y. So it's a way to search 200,000 listings at once and go, just show me the ones that are good yielding, say from an investment perspective. In terms of this, so that all of the off-market stuff goes onto here, and this is sort of the first phase of the off-market. So it's very much sourcer-led. So if I just go back to the beginning here, here's my properties that have just come in. There's a whole bunch of sources, just adding them every day. I'm adding in things like this here for you as well to go, okay, where is all the stock? And even at this, this off-market thing is not going to be used by everyone that's using Stash. Stash, it still has a lot of other stuff that all the BAs are using. This is just more of an additive thing to go, you know what, can't find a property for this buyer. Maybe there's something in the off-market section. Let's go see if anything's there. So there's probably going to be hundreds of properties in here. I'll start to load them in the next couple of days. But we're also then showing you, okay, what are the areas that we have a lot of stock on? And you could just use that, to be honest, and go, okay, Ballarat, let's go have a look at that. Let's go see what properties are out there. Maybe I'm going to look at targeting those areas. So it's just another sort of data layer to go after that. So this is sort of our sources going off finding properties. We're guided by the market. We're guided by the sort of stats that are out there and where we're sort of looking and positioning. A lot of WA sort of last year, and now it's sort of moving. Vic starting to pick up, so there's people looking down in Vic in terms of what people are after, as well as North Queensland. So there's a lot of guided by the market. The bit we're working on next, and this is hopefully I'm going to get it sort of released in the next few weeks, is this buyer brief. So this is sort of the end-to-end solution that we're building out here. So I've got just to really quickly show you, because this isn't live yet, but kind of the North Star of what I'm trying to build. So I can add all my clients into here and see what they want. But I'm working on, actually, I can't show you here. I'll have to show you on this screen. Let's bring it in. Let me quickly show you this. So it's not live, but the premise is that you do your briefs every day. And depending on what that buyer wants, that's kind of where we need to look. So I'll just go to my briefs. I'll just pick a random one. So this section's not yet live, but it will be. So basically, we're building out a brief where you can come in here and collect all the details of what your buyer wants. And then whether it's an investment property or PPR, what are the target suburbs, or what are the target yields, or what are the target stats that you're trying to get for your buyer. And then what we'll present to you is a bunch of shortlisted suburbs first, and then a bunch of shortlisted properties. So we can automatically match what your brief is with our off-market properties, as well as the on-market properties, as well as all the suburbs that are out there to help guide you down the path. So rather than you have to do your brief and then go off and do like 20 searches, you should be able to do your brief, and then ideally we'll push all the searches at you. So that's kind of the next part. And if there's no off-market properties in there, what we're going to do is probably something like, you could publish this brief, obviously a privatized version of that brief, to our sources, and they can go off and hunt for you. So it's kind of like a client brief-led strategy versus saying just sources going out and finding properties. We'll solve both, because I think there's so much off-market properties that are coming across our desk. But obviously, if sources are finding properties that no one wants, then that's kind of useless. Whereas if you've got briefs that you've just done, you can't find a property for, we'll help you sort of connect the dots that way as well. So yeah, that's kind of
what sort of timelines on that release?
the brief. I've basically three. I reckon I can get a version of it up in about three or so weeks. I'm going overseas in about 3 or so weeks, so I've got to get it done. So hopefully towards the end of June, probably no later than the 19th, I'll get a version of that up. And it's kind of like the brief is the one part. I'm going to add like the portfolio. I've got a nice report that you can come in. If you've seen Stash, you've seen the property reports and the suburb reports. I'm putting out a nice sort of buyer brief report, just summarizing your discussions with them. Here's what they're exactly after. And you can give that to them really early on, but to try and get the deal done, basically, try and get them signed up. And then you just sort of unlock more information as you've signed them up and then start delivering them, that value. So yeah, I reckon I can get a version of that with the suburbs and the properties up relatively quickly on that front. And then there's other stuff that I want to do around. So this isn't solely just tied to the off-market product. This is for you to use for everything that you're doing. But when the property shortlist will come up, it'll be like, here's all the off-market properties that match. Here's all the properties that you've already found for them that you've added to their pipeline, as well as here's all the on-market properties that could suit that buyer brief. So rather than search the 200,000 listings, we'll do that, crunch the data and go, here's some properties that we think might match that brief, go and connect with the agent. And then in here, I think I've got some other stats around, here's the agents I think you should speak to based on that brief. So if you want to go out and hunt yourself with the agents, you'll be able to do that as well. So it's kind of coming at it from all angles. And if you can't find any off-market properties, then there might be something in the off-market section to connect the dots, and away you go and move on to the next buyer. Well, that's kind of the Stash marketplace in a nutshell.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we have one from John. Can I request for a property from a specific suburb?
Yeah, so I think effectively that. Like, it probably will be brief led. So you'll obviously have a buyer, I guess, in that looking for that suburb. And how do we help connect that with the sources that are doing this as a job every day? So yeah, I think that's got to be part of it, because we just don't want to find properties for the sake of it. We want to make sure that there's buyers for those properties. So that's going to be a key part.
Andy, do you want to just dive deeper on your question in relation to an API to your website?
Yeah, sure. So I was just wondering, because I've got a website which I use for my clientele, and sometimes I just ask them to go to my website and see what I've got to offer, and what properties I have for sale. So I publish those properties on my website. So I was just wondering, if it is possible to have the API connection or something to output those off-market properties into my website.
Yeah, we can definitely have a look at it. I think we're built on, we've got a lot of APIs flying around for everything that we're doing. Do you publish off-market properties now to your database?
Yeah. So I predominantly work on the off-market new properties.
Yep.
So I wouldn't mind having something like this, which is like export established properties.
Yeah. We're also looking at adding new build properties off the plans if there are. We've got some sources for that. Obviously, they've still got to stack up from a investor point of view, or not an investor, but they've got to stack up. Just because they're off the plan doesn't mean they're all good. So we're looking at that side, as well as Stash's DNA. If anyone's seen Stash from 5 years ago, it was all about developers. It was all about helping developers find splitter blocks and development sites and things like that. So I think there's other, if you've got buyers agents looking for that type of stock, we think we'll be able to help load off-market properties specifically for that purpose. So there's trying to cover it up from all bases there.
Yeah. Oh, that would be awesome if you can do those API thing for this stuff. Is that in your backlog, or is that something that you?
It's not. I wouldn't say it's in the backlog, because the API is nothing. It's kind of already there, so it's just more of a commercial question how we do that, I suppose, because there's certain protections on platform that we don't. Correct. We want to make sure that we ideally protect the sourcer as well as protect the agent. We want to make sure that if they're doing the work and doing the vetting and doing all that they're kind of protected in that process. So that's where we take it off platform. We kind of lose that control. But it's at the end of the day, we're open to everything we're doing here.
Yeah. So yeah, technically it might be possible, but you're right. Commercially, you may want to only publish certain amount of information,
Yeah.
and then when the inquiry comes, maybe at that time,
Yeah, pretty much. Like when we first launched it, we launched it without the address. It was a suburb only, and the market sort of told us we need to know this. We need to know the property. We're obviously trying to protect the sourcer as part of that process, but then they were like, you know what, just remove that. Give everyone the address. Let the buyer's agent, analyze, do a little bit of research as well, and that helps the inquiry come through.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I have IT background, so sorry, I'm just asking technical questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yes, in terms of do we only try and publish good off market? That's the plan. So I'm trying to automate the insurance side of things, just so we can try and bring that into the fold, because certain properties just get slaughtered on insurance quotes that generally the numbers then won't stack up. So we're trying to. That's kind of the North Star of what we're trying to do here is we're rejecting properties that come through. We don't want everything just because it's off market. Doesn't make it good. So yeah, we're trying to get to that point, load them in, and hopefully there's enough stock there that will help sort of everyone's briefs that are out there. But then we'll be guided by pretty much the industry around where we need to look next. But yeah, if anyone hasn't used Dash, there's a free trial for like a couple of weeks on trial. You can just go to Stash Property. You can go to /marketplace and get a free trial there. We'll put a copy of this webinar up on this page as well after this. But yeah, if anyone wants a free trial, jump on, click on that, have a play. There's a couple of other demos that we do have twice a week, which go through a lot more detail around some of the other stuff. But there's certainly no shortage of things coming down the line, particularly with that brief is kind of the next frontier for us.
So Colin, I have two questions for you.
Yep.
One is pretty quick and straightforward. Is that the buyer's brief, is that acting like a CRM?
Not. We get this
kind of that way.
Not as much. I guess I'll say yes and no in terms of that. It's kind of, if you've got active buyers that you're currently working on and you're looking for properties for them and you want to sort of manage the properties part of that, then yeah, it kind of can do that. If you've got a lot of prospects that you're trying to turn into clients, then you'll still need a CRM or some sort of platform to do that. So that's kind of the difference, I guess, in terms of where that line sort of sits. But yeah, ideally at the end of the day, we're trying to get you out of inboxes and get you out of typing in data left, right, and center. But having said that, if you've got a CRM, we're trying to plug into them as well. We're trying to, because a lot of buyers agents have their CRM that they're used to and comfortable with and does a lot more than just, say, managing properties. We want to try and connect those dots into there as well to save you having to retype data is kind of the key. But yeah, you can use it as a slight, managing the properties as for those active clients that you're currently working on.
Okay. The other two questions I have is that the off-market properties, let's say if they get sold off-market,
yep,
how do you guys know when to remove it from there? Because the deal sourcer would probably put it in, but who takes it out of there? That's the question.
Yeah, the agent's working. The deal source is working closely with the agent, so that's pretty much how this stuff does all work, is based on relationships. So the agent has the listing, and they're working solely with the sourcer, and then they're giving them, say, a couple of days, a few days to try and you put it out to your networks and see if you can get this deal done. The other thing I should mention, I probably should have mentioned this from the beginning, but when you inquire on a listing, you're not up against every other buyer's agent on our platform. So basically, you could inquire on a listing, 10 people could inquire on the listing. That property sourcer is going to release that to one buyer's agent. They're not going to release to everyone, and everyone's sort of just increasing the price. So it's a really important part, is like, it's going to be you get connected and you only get connected to that selling agent to get that deal done. So, and
the last question I have is, in the buyer's brief, let's say you have a client and you've sold them a property at a certain value.
Yep.
Can I go, say, 6 months down the line and see what the value of the property is at that point in time? Just to know if he's built equity or not on it.
Yeah. Yes, effectively. I think we've got a current portfolio in there. That's probably the last part I'll build. If you ever use Game Plans are doing that. We've integrated with Game Plans in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. They've got that, hand under foot with what they're building out there. So we're integrating into game plans to tell you exactly that. When rather than call your client 1 year down the line, call them after 6 months because they might have enough available equity to go again. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that space that I think game plans or ourselves will be able to help in for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Any questions? Anything else? 804. We'll put a copy of this one up. But yeah, any questions, you can reach out to the team either through the chat. If you've got any questions around Marketplace, specifically around sourcing and becoming a sourcer, you can just email marketplace@stashproperty.com.au, or just chuck us. I'll chuck my email in here if you got any questions.